Lord, the sun is shining outside. I see it through the window. I know it's shining because logic tells me so, because the light comes in and illuminates the dust dancing in the air. But I don't feel it. I don't feel its warmth. I don't feel its joy. To me, it's just light, a functional illumination that allows me to avoid the furniture. It's as if my entire life has become a black and white movie. I see the shapes, I understand the actions, I hear the dialogues, but the color, the vibration, the essence that gives life to everything has disappeared. And I am the only one in the movie theater who seems to have noticed. Everyone else is marveling at the technicolor of existence, and I am trapped in this grayscale, pretending that I too see the blue of the sky. Today I had lunch with my family. The table was full. There was laughter, there were conversations, there was my favorite childhood food, and I was there. Physically, I was there. I smiled at the right moments. I asked the expected questions. How was your day? It's so good to see you. I chewed the food, felt its texture in my mouth, swallowed. But the taste, where was the taste? It was just fuel. It was matter being transferred, the joy of sharing, the comfort of home-cooked food, the happiness of being with my family. They were just concepts, memories of feelings I know I should be feeling, but which are now like a foreign language I have forgotten how to speak. And that is the most exhausting part, Lord, the performance. To live extinguished on the inside is already an agony, but to have to stage the light for the outside world is a form of exquisite torture. My face has become my greatest lie. The muscles in my face ache at the end of the day from holding a smile that doesn't start in the heart. My laughter has become a ventriloquist's trick, a sound I produce, but which has no origin in any real joy. I have become a very talented actor in the role of a normal and functional person, and people believe it. They tell me, "You're always in a good mood." And each of these compliments is like a nail driven deeper into my loneliness, because it shows how invisible my condition is, how successful my charade is, how completely alone I am within myself. Even victories have lost their meaning. Last week I received recognition at work, something I had strived for, something that months ago would have filled me with pride and happiness. My boss congratulated me in front of everyone. My colleagues patted me on the back, and I felt nothing, a vacuum, an echo. I smiled. I thanked them. I said the right words. Thank you. It was a team effort. But inside, it was as if the news had been given to someone else. It was like watching a stranger's award ceremony. The joy, the satisfaction, the feeling of a job well done. Where did they go? It's as if my soul has been anesthetized, and I don't know what the dose was, nor who administered it. I only know that the anesthesia is general, and I am awake on the operating table watching everything happen to me but feeling absolutely nothing. And I question myself, Lord, what is wrong with me? Am I broken? Did some fundamental piece of my humanity come loose and get lost? I look at other people and feel an envy that corrodes me. Envy of the way they delight in a cup of coffee. Envy of the sparkle in their eyes when they talk about something they love. Envy of their ability to get angry at the traffic, to get frustrated with little things. Because even anger, even frustration, are feelings. And I would give anything to feel real anger, to feel a deep sadness, instead of this deafening nothingness, this desert, this absence. My life has become a flat electrocardiogram. No peaks, no valleys, just a straight, monotonous line that stretches on infinitely. And I am afraid that this is the definition of a living death. I try to remember the last time I felt real joy, a genuine joy, born from within and overflowing, and my memory seems hazy. I remember events that should have been joyful, but the feeling itself, its signature on my soul, seems distant, like the memory of a dream. Have I always been this way? And is my memory of a colorful life just an illusion? Or did the color fade so slowly that I didn't notice? It was like a slow death by emotional asphyxiation, an odorless and invisible gas leak, which slowly took the oxygen from my soul, day after day, until all that was left was this shell that breathes and walks and talks, but is hollow on the inside. The things that once gave me pleasure are now just tasks. Listening to music was a refuge. Now it's just background noise. Reading a book was an adventure. Now the words get jumbled on the page and I can't concentrate. Walking in nature was a source of peace. Now it's just a mechanical exercise of putting one foot in front of the other. Everything has lost its charm. The world has become a cardboard set, and I am a tired actor, repeating the same lines from a meaningless script. And I wonder, what is the purpose of all this? If life is a journey, and the journey brings no joy, no satisfaction, no feeling, then why walk? Why keep getting out of bed every morning to put on the costume and perform another act of this mediocre play? And that's when the fear really sets in. The fear that this is permanent. The fear that this state of gray is my new normal. The fear of living the rest of my days like this, as a spectator of my own life, politely applauding the events, but never again feeling the emotion of being truly on stage. And this fear is so great, so overwhelming, that it paralyzes me even more. That is why I come to you today, Lord, not with the vibrant faith I see in other people, not with a heart full of praise. I come to you as a ghost, as a faded soul. I come to you because I was told that you are the painter of the universe, the master of all colors, and my palette is empty. It only has gray. I come to you because I was told that you are the source of living water, and my soul is dry, cracked, barren. I come to you because all earthly sources of joy have dried up for me. The source of relationships, the source of achievements, the source of pleasures, they are all dust, and you are my last hope. My prayer today is not a request for happiness. That would be too big a leap. Happiness seems like another continent, and I don't even have the strength to build a boat. My prayer is much more modest. It is a cry for help from limbo, from the purgatory of the absence of feelings. It is the acknowledgement of my emotional bankruptcy, and I begin with the simplest and most honest confession I can make. Lord, I feel nothing. I am here. I breathe. I exist, but I do not feel. Joy has abandoned me. Pleasure has become a legend. Hope is a foreign word. I am a dark room with the windows closed and the curtains drawn, and I no longer remember what sunlight is like. And what's worse, a part of me is no longer sure if I even want to open the curtains, because the darkness in its monotony has become familiar. It has become safe. I am extinguished on the inside, and my performance on the outside is costing me what little energy I have left. I am at my limit, and I am afraid of what happens after the limit. That is why I am here, on my knees, in the darkness of my own being, not knowing what to ask for, not knowing what to expect, just reporting my condition, like a patient reports his symptoms to a doctor, in the desperate hope that there is a diagnosis, that there is a remedy, that this condition is not a death sentence. And in this silence, in this darkness, my prayer continues, but it changes. It ceases to be just a statement of emptiness and becomes an investigation, a plea for understanding. Lord, how did I get here? I try to rewind the tape of my life, looking for the exact point where the color began to leak out. It wasn't sudden. There was no great trauma, no explosion that left everything in ruins. It was more subtle. It was a slow, gradual fading. It was like leaving a vibrant painting under the sun for years on end. One day you look and realize that the reds are no longer vibrant, the blues are pale, and everything has blended into a tired sepia tone. Was it the disappointments, the small and constant frustrations that added up created a layer of dust over my soul? Every unmet expectation, every dream that didn't come true, every door that closed, did each one of them steal a little of my color? I built sandcastles with such care, and the tide of life came once, twice, 10 times and undid them. And maybe after a while I simply got tired of rebuilding. Maybe I decided it was less painful to build nothing, to expect nothing, to desire nothing. Maybe this numbness is a defense mechanism, an armor I put on myself to avoid further injury, but which has proven so heavy that it now prevents me from moving, from feeling, from living. I protected myself so much from pain that I ended up protecting myself from joy as well. Or was it the exhaustion, Lord, the incessant routine, the weight of responsibilities, the pressure to be productive, to be successful, to be enough? I ran so hard for so long on the treadmill of life that maybe I forgot to look out the window. I focused so much on the destination that I forgot that life happens during the journey. And now that I may have reached some of the milestones I set for myself, I look around and realize I enjoyed none of the path, and the achievement without the memory of the journey's joy is just a hollow trophy. And the loneliness of this place where I find myself is indescribable, because on the outside, everything seems fine, and therefore people don't understand. They give me well-intentioned advice that sounds like aggression. You need to get out more. Try to think positive. Look on the bright side. They don't comprehend that the problem is not in the scenery, but in the eyes of the beholder. I can be in the most beautiful place in the world, but if my eyes only see in black and white, what good is the landscape? And each piece of advice only increases my isolation because it forces me to perform even more. I smile and say, that's true. You're right. While inside I scream, you have no idea what you're talking about. I feel like an astronaut floating in a vacuum, seeing the vibrant, life-filled Earth from a distance, but separated from it by an impenetrable glass helmet. I see the party, but I can't hear the music. So, my prayer changes once more. It becomes a cry, a plea from the center of my nothingness. And my request is this: Lord, let me feel anything. I dare not ask for joy. It is too big a request, too ambitious. I ask for the first step. I ask for the spark. Let me feel sadness, a real, deep sadness for something I have lost. Because sadness, at least, would remind me that something once had value to me. Let me feel anger, a righteous anger against an injustice. Because anger, at least, would show me that there is still a passion for righteousness within me. Let me feel longing, a longing that squeezes my chest. Because longing, at least, would prove that I once loved something or someone with intensity. I prefer pain to the void. I prefer suffering to anesthesia, because pain is a sign of life. Pain proves that the nerves are still working. My fear is that my spiritual nerves have died, that my ability to feel has been cauterized forever. Please, God, prove me wrong. Send me a feeling, a single one, a single musical note in the deafening silence of my soul, a drop of color on my gray canvas. I beg you. I no longer want to be a spectator. I want to feel the pulse of life again, even if it is a pulse of pain, and I remember who I was. I search my memory for the self that felt things. I remember a time in childhood when I cried with joy upon receiving a gift I desperately wanted. Where is that capacity to overflow? I remember a time in my youth when my heart was broken and the pain was so intense I thought I would die. Where is that capacity to love so fiercely? I remember a time when I saw a sunset and felt awe, a reverence, a connection to something greater than myself. Where is that capacity to marvel? It seems like I'm talking about someone else, a distant friend who moved away and was never heard from again. And my prayer becomes a request for a reunion. Lord, give me back to myself. Give me back my feeling heart. Take off this lead armor I have worn. Break the glass of my helmet. I am afraid of what I will feel when the air rushes in again. Maybe it will burn my lungs. Maybe the light will hurt my eyes. Maybe the noise of the world will deafen me, but it is a risk I must take. Because living in the vacuum, in the silence and the darkness, is no longer living. You created me for communion, for beauty, for love, for joy. You did not create me for this gray limbo. This is not your work. This is my work, the work of the world, the work of exhaustion, the work of fear. So I ask you as the original artist, restore your work, pick up your brushes, find your colors, and start painting over my gray. I don't know how this works. I don't have a 5-step plan to recover joy. All my knowledge, all my willpower have proven useless. I am empty-handed, totally dependent. And here, at the bottom of the pit of my apathy, I try one last exercise. I look at my hand. I just look. I know it is a complex and wonderful creation. I know that within it are bones and muscles and nerves that operate in perfect harmony. I feel no admiration, but I decide to acknowledge the fact. It is an act of will, not of feeling. Lord, I don't feel it, but I know this hand is a marvel. Thank you for it. It is a mechanical, cold prayer, but it is the only one I can make. I look at the tree outside the window. I don't feel its beauty, but I recognize its design. Lord, I know that this tree is beautiful. Thank you for it. I continue. I do this with the little things, the food on my plate, the roof over my head, the fact that I am breathing. I list them like an accountant taking inventory, without emotion, just the factual acknowledgement of grace. And I wonder if this is the beginning. If joy does not return with an explosion, but with a whisper. If it does not return through feeling, but through choice. The choice to recognize the good, even when one cannot feel it. The choice to give thanks, even with a mute heart. And in the midst of this exercise, something happens. A memory emerges, uninvited. A memory of a rainy day, a long time ago. I was with someone I loved, and we ran in the rain, laughing, drenched and happy. And, for a trillionth of a second, I almost feel it. Almost. It's not the joy itself, but its shadow, nostalgia. And nostalgia is a form of sadness, and sadness is a feeling. And in the middle of my desert, I have found a cactus, something that proves not everything is dead. It is a weak, almost imperceptible sensation, but it is there. A small crack. in the armor of my apathy, and I cling to it like a castaway clings to a piece of wreckage. It is the first proof that reconnection is possible. It is the first sign that perhaps the anesthesia is beginning to wear off, and that tiny spark of feeling, that shadow of nostalgia, became my anchor. For days, it was all I had, a minuscule proof, almost insignificant to the world, but monumental to me, that my heart was not dead, just in a deep sleep. And my prayer, which was once a report of the void and then a cry for any sensation, now transforms into a gardener's plea. Lord, I whisper in the silence of my room, I have found a seed. A single seed of feeling amidst all this concrete. I don't know how to care for it. I don't know how to make it grow. Please don't let it die. Send your rain. Send your sun. Teach me to cultivate my own garden again. I understood that healing would not be a passive act. I couldn't just lie in the dark, waiting for you to break down the door and flood the room with light. I had to, with what little strength I had, drag myself to the window and try to open a crack in the curtain. And that's what I began to do. Small acts of intentionality, without the pressure to feel something, but with the simple intention of exposing myself to the possibility. I created a new routine. Instead of turning on the television to numb myself with noise, I would play classical music, a piece that I knew had once moved me. I would sit in silence and just listen. Most of the time, nothing happened. It was just sound in the air. But one afternoon, as the notes of a cello filled the room, I felt a shiver, a physical shiver on my skin. My body remembered how to feel before my mind did, and I cried. Not from sadness, not from joy. I cried with relief, because a shiver is a feeling, and it meant that I was still connected, that the wires had not all been cut. I began to walk, no longer mechanically, but with a mission, to notice. I forced myself to stop and truly look at a flower. I observed its colors, its texture, the complexity of its design. I didn't feel the explosion of beauty I might have felt before, but I felt curiosity, and curiosity is the gateway to wonder. I would sit on a park bench and watch people. I saw a mother playing with her child, and instead of total emptiness, I felt an echo of tenderness. I saw an elderly couple walking hand in hand and felt a pang of admiration. They were weak, distant feelings, like radio stations with a bad signal, but I could hear fragments of the melody, and that was enough. The turning point happened on a rainy afternoon. I forced myself to leave the house and do some volunteer work I had signed up for in a moment of desperation at a shelter for abandoned animals. I didn't want to go. Apathy told me to stay in bed, but the new discipline, the gardener's discipline, pushed me out, and I went. The place was noisy, a little sad, and I was just doing my tasks mechanically, cleaning, feeding, until I stopped in front of a cage where there was an old dog with graying fur and a look of infinite sadness. Our eyes met, and in that instant, something broke inside me. His sadness mirrored mine. His loneliness echoed mine. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt a wave of compassion so strong, so overwhelming, that it bent me over. I knelt in front of the cage, put my fingers through the bars, and the dog licked my hand, and the tears came. Hot, real tears, which were not of self-pity, but of connection. I was feeling the pain of another being, and that meant my heart was not dead. Empathy was the key that opened the door from the inside. And in that moment, I understood that perhaps the way out of my own emptiness was not in seeking my own joy, but in connecting with the pain and joy of others. From that day on, the color began to return. Not all at once, but drop by drop. One day, I tasted the real flavor of my coffee and smiled. A small smile, just for myself, but it was real. Another day, I heard a joke, and my laughter wasn't fabricated. It bubbled up from within, taking me by surprise. I began to find pleasure in things that my old search for grand happiness would have ignored. The warmth of the sun on my skin, the smell of wet earth after the rain, the sound of a friend's voice on the phone, and my relationship with joy changed completely. Before, I saw it as a right, a default state that had been stolen from me. Now I see it as a grace, a gift, a miracle. I no longer expect to wake up happy every day, but I wake up with an attentive hope, a curiosity to discover where the little sparks of joy might be hidden throughout the day, and I have learned to celebrate them as the treasures they are. My life has stopped being a desperate search for a lost feeling and has become a daily treasure hunt, where every small beauty found is a victory. My faith has also been transformed. It has ceased to be a cry in the dark and has become a partnership with you. I understood that you did not heal me with a magic wand. You placed the seeds and the tools in my path, but you required of me the courage to dig the earth, to water the plant, to tend the garden. Faith became an act of co-creation, an act of noticing your grace in the world and choosing to interact with it. And my prayer has become, for the most part, a conversation of gratitude. Lord, thank you for the sun today. I felt its warmth. Thank you for that conversation. I felt connected. Thank you even for the sadness I felt yesterday, because it reminded me that my heart is alive. I learned to give thanks not just for the peaks, but also for the valleys, because both are proof that I am in the landscape of life and no longer in the gray room of apathy. I am no longer the person I was before all this. The scars of the gray time remain. I have a keen awareness of the fragility of joy and the proximity of the void, but this awareness no longer terrifies me. It makes me more grateful. It makes me more attentive. It prevents me from taking life and its small miracles for granted. In a way, the experience of nothingness taught me to value everything. Today, when I smile, the smile is mine. When I cry, the tears are mine. When I feel, the feelings are mine. I have regained possession of my own soul, and I know that life will have other winters. But now I know that spring always returns, and I know who to turn to when the leaves begin to fall. I know that, even in the darkest and coldest of seasons, the gardener never abandons his garden, and this certainty is my peace. Amen. If this touched your heart, share it with someone who might need to find the first color in their gray world today.